My broke BF and his entire family wants to move into my house and mooch off my money. I broke up with him, kicked him out of my house, and called his mother and her children losers. AITA, I'm F40, at a point in my career where I've been able to accomplish some things very fast and some took a long, huge minute. I'm very grateful and ready for my new chapter, which includes relocation and a slower pace. I'm in the process of ending a relationship, Jason M39, since I recently came to the conclusion that I can't be with him. I've given him lots of opportunities and I feel depleted and tired. It's come to a point where I get tense by merely hearing his voice. We are engaged, and we have also gotten over many bad moments in our relationship. I was extremely busy, and now that I have the opportunity of finding myself a bit, I just don't want to get married. He comes from a family with trauma. His parents had a very bad and long-dragging divorce and their children got pulled into it. Maybe I shouldn't talk like this, but all of their kids are losers, including my fiancé. I've tried to ignore this, but I'm ashamed of him. His sister has a cosmetology certificate, but she refuses to get a job because she needs to be a SAHM, yet is always angry at her ex because his child support isn't enough. His two brothers are musicians. One works at a hotel and sent his baby mama home to her parents as soon as she got pregnant, and the other one lives a man-child life. Both Bills spend long nights playing with bands but never get paid, so they frequently have problems at their real jobs for tardiness. Jason and I had issues early on because he kept switching jobs and complaining. We reached a stable stage in our relationship until we got engaged. I don't feel like I'm his priority. Everything always needs to go to his family. Every plan, every potential progress is always about giving to his family. When I got an opportunity to develop a food truck park, he immediately tried to bring his mother into it so that she could get a food stand to help her. If I get a hospitality client, he immediately asks if his brothers can get hired. Not only this, but tries to create opportunities so that they can get plugged onto whatever I'm doing and start a business sucking the life out of my clients. Of course, I never allow it. He doesn't understand that this has cost me lots of blood, sweat, and tears to get, and that I'm not okay just handing it down. For background, I have access to both medium-sized and small companies, and I got my first global client last year. At the time when my career began to really pick up, Jason and I had gotten engaged, and I felt comfortable sharing my progress. By holiday season last year, I had a very complicated situation. I needed to complete a deadline, but had already bought tickets for my kids to fly to see my parents. Jason confirmed that he would go with me whenever I was ready, so I didn't book a flight as he would drive us. I flew my kids, came back, worked my ass off, and was both anxious and worried. I kept open communication with the client, delivered by the 22nd but needed to wait for their approval, which included a visit to their location. They are manufacturers, so I was basically on call. It was approved, but Jason went MIA. It was too late to get a flight, but when he replied to give him a couple of hours, I was relieved thinking that we would leave soon. He stalled and made me wait until I started crying due to anxiety. I ended up driving myself while exhausted on Christmas Eve, which is exactly what I didn't want. I had to stop at a motel to sleep a few hours and then get on and spent Xmas forcing myself to stay awake to be present for my family. I nearly broke up with him over this, especially when he said he didn't leave early because his mother got emotional. So fast forward and I have gotten good contracts. Clients have been referring other clients and I finally stabilized my schedule and have been hiring more people. I was super excited to share my progress with him. I got a very good opportunity to move closer to my family and to work for a very large company for very good money. The minute that I told him, he started with the family business subject. He wanted me to hire a company that he would create. I am firmly opposed to this. That's a company only on name. He wanted to tap into anything that can be done, his words. He has been very insistent, but dropped it because we had a huge fight. He's been very enthusiastic about moving. He has a job prospect and he would earn a better salary. Last month, we found a rental property and were discussing our plans. I need a home office and bedrooms for my kids. He mentioned that he needed a spare room for guests. I immediately had a bad feeling and he said he wanted his family to stay over until they found their own jobs. He said the family room could be converted into another extra bedroom. I could picture myself having to deal with his family and being unable to evict them. I tried to talk to him, but he said it's what he wants and he has a right to bring his family and said period, which sounded so one-sided that it has made me rethink the whole matter. I mean, who's going to pay for all this? I asked if he planned on doing all this on my dime, and he started throwing things. I sat him down for a serious conversation, and his reasoning is that family helps family. True, in my case, because we are very close, but they don't use me as their personal raft. I was very blunt and as honest as I could. I don't want his family living with us, and he knows that. I will not agree to financially support anyone, especially after he's made plans to spend my new money, but hasn't asked me if I agree, or even if I plan on helping my own family. He has never asked if my family needs anything. It's all about him. He has made plans to get his family inside our new home without offering a potential deadline, and has dropped hints about wanting a new car. I was sincere about slowly losing my respect for him because his ways have made me feel like he has no respect for my sacrifices and everything I went through to get to this point. It wasn't him getting sleep deprived and being constantly on the line to get things done. The conversation went nowhere because he grabbed his backpack and went out. A few days later, he told me that he got fired and sent me the memo that he got, and it clearly said it was because of insubordination. There is so much to unpack about this, from being a possible poor example to my kids, to being a weak man who won't be able to answer for our family, should I be unable to support us. Fuck that shit. I can't. I told him that I wanted to break up, and he said things that are embarrassing. He said he thought he'd finally found the love of his life, but said he is dissatisfied with me because I'm taking away all of his dreams. The entire situation was cringe because he held onto the car wheel and started rocking back and forth. He accused me of being a snob now that I'm rich. I'm not rich, but I hope my opportunities keep opening up so that I can build my wealth. I told him the problem was right there. He's asking to stay together, but won't work on himself. I gathered all of his belongings and asked him to come pick them up, and he refused. So I had to drive to Mael's house, and once there, she confronted me. She said that I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing by playing a goody two-shoes, moron, stupid in their family slang, and secretly working to rip the family apart. She mentioned very personal things that I know I didn't share with her, and it made me so mad that I called her and all of her children losers. He keeps sending me info on couples therapy, but I just don't want it. He won't remove his car from my garage, and he won't take his gym equipment, which is too heavy. He says he would have done it, but because I called him a loser, he's not removing anything because I disrespected his mom, AITA, for confronting her. My girlfriend went to a party that I wasn't invited to. I suspect she's cheating on me, so I broke up with her. AITA, I 24M, and my girlfriend 23F, Anne began dating in college. Last week, Anne invited me to her coworkers, Joe, party. I had heard a lot about him in the past, and he and she really seemed to have a lot in common, especially with their taste in music. Apparently, he was an amateur musician with a fairly successful YouTube channel. Joe initially invited only Anne, but when she asked him if I could tag along, he said it was fine. The party was on Saturday evening. It was a fun party with about 30 people, held at a restaurant Joe had rented out. Towards the end, though, I wandered into Anne's little discussion group, and I immediately got the feeling that nobody really wanted me there, most of all Anne. It was her, Joe, and a few other people. Thinking that I was just imagining things, I hung around and listened to Joe basically boast about himself the whole time. A little while later, I wandered off to get myself a drink and chat with a few other people. Eventually, the time to leave came around, and I went to find Anne again. Joe approached me at that point and said that he was having an after-party over at his house. I was going to refuse, but then he said, "Sorry, man, but only Anne is invited," while clapping me on the shoulder. I first told him not to touch me, and then said, "She's not going." He informed me that she had already accepted the invitation. I texted Anne immediately to ask where she was. She responded, "Sorry, on the way to Joe's place. I'll see you tomorrow, love you." I asked if she knew I wasn't invited, and she then left me on read. Texts after that were all ignored. I drove home furious. I stayed up all night, and finally Anne walked in the door at 5:42 a.m. I know because I was by the window watching. I recognized the car as Joe's and the driver as Joe. Nobody else was in the car. Anne waved to him cutely and laughed at something he said. Anne came inside and acted surprised to see me still up. At that point, I flatly told her that we were done, and she had the rest of the day to move out. Anne was at first confused with me, and then I told her that she can just move in with Joe. She rolled her eyes and said nothing happened. She gave me this spiel about my insecurities and imagination. I said it didn't matter. After this back and forward arguing, Anne finally relented and sarcastically thanked me for wasting the best years of her life. Anne finally moved out yesterday, and it was pretty dramatic. She said that she loved me and that I was throwing away everything over a party. Did I do her wrong here? I feel like I'm getting gaslighted.